Lee and Blake Lovell here from Southeastern14.com. We are previewing SEC basketball action on Tuesday, February the 8th. There are 4 games. Let's go in order of tip-off. LSU is traveling to College Station for a 6 Central tip-off. The Tigers 3-point favorites, according to Ken Pomeroy. We don't have lines yet, and so that's what we're going to be going by when we give out spreads here. Blake, both teams really in need of a win. LSU has lost 6 of 7. A&M, I think, has lost 6 straight. Both teams have played a lot of close games, particularly A&M. Somebody's going to leave Tuesday night feeling a lot better because someone's got to win this game.
Yeah, my advice is good luck, because if you're trying to figure this game out, good luck, because like, where do you even start? I mean, you go back to the game they played previously, and LSU won by 6, and it was not really a pretty game if you go back and look at kind of the numbers. I remember watching it, and now that I remember, I'm like, yeah, this was not that long ago. What was it, a week and a half or so ago? And it's not that pretty. There was a lot of turnovers, but as we said going into that one, I mean, you kind of expect that with the way these two play defense. And yeah, look, we've talked about it. If you haven't watched our previous video, or really any video we've done recently, LSU is just a different team without Xavier Pinson on the floor. Yes, Tari Eason is still the guy that I think makes things go for them, but Pinson's just such an important player for them offensively, I think, and just having him on the floor defensively too. Like, you need another guy that can kind of push the ball in the right direction to where you need it to go. And I don't know if he plays or not. I mean, I have no idea what the expectation is for him at this point. But A&M, we've said it. I mean, if you think this is going to be anything but a close game, I would tell you to look at A&M's last 7 games at this point. Even they've lost 6 in a row, but Missouri game was close.
Yeah.
I mean, really,
4 have been by 6 points or less, and it's good teams basically.
Every game they played in the SEC this year, outside of the 16-point win at home against Ole Miss, has been a 10-point or 11-point or less type game. So, like, they've been right there in all these games. The problem is they just haven't found the way to win them. Oh, man, it's like this is a flip a coin on what you expect to see from these two teams that have really struggled. I think you throw out the stats, you throw out everything in this game. These are just two teams that need to win, and I'm going to go with A&M. I think that they're at home. I'm going to pick them to win this one. As I've said, I just think if Xavier Pinson doesn't play, I just did not like what I saw from LSU against Vanderbilt. I haven't liked what I've seen from LSU, in a little while now. And I think A&M perhaps finds a way to squeak out a win here, just because they've got to win one of these close games at some point, and maybe this is the one they do that. So
yeah, that's how I'm feeling on it too. Kentucky is a 13-point favorite, according to Ken Pomeroy. The Wildcats, who are just really playing well right now, go to Columbia, South Carolina. That tip-off is 7 Eastern. Carolina was awful last time out against Tennessee, which had not been the case really recently for them. It's tempting to go with what you last saw, which was how bad they looked. We've talked about their struggles scoring, their struggles turning over the ball, and Kentucky is a team that just gives you no quarter defensively. This feels like a game that Kentucky should win going away, even on the road, but Are we counting South Carolina out too quickly if we don't go there a little bit?
No, I think Kentucky's just better, and I think that they will. This to me is one of those. I thought South Carolina matched up okay with Tennessee. On paper, I don't think they match up well with Kentucky, and there's a lot of teams are that way. But one thing that I look at here is, what do we always say about Kentucky in terms of their rebounding ability, Oscar Tshiebwe's ability to give them some extra opportunities on the offensive side. Now, they only had 10 offensive rebounds against Alabama, but, in some of these games they've been impressive. They're usually going to hit that double-digit mark when it comes to second chance opportunities just out of getting offensive rebounds. And I look at South Carolina, and I just think this is a team that is going to have a hard time slowing down anything Kentucky can do. And I say that on a South Carolina team that is actually, as we've talked about, has been kind of probably a little underrated defensively this year. But I just think, the only thing I will say about this one is what we said about some of the other games. with these teams, these top teams on the road in this kind of setting, right? Like Auburn. In some of these games where you're playing a bottom four team in the league, you're going to get their best shot, ESPN game, kind of in a prime time setting. I think, we probably get a good South Carolina performance, but I don't think we're going to get a good South Carolina performance maybe for the entire game. And any slip you have against Kentucky, they're just too good. And
Yeah.
my guess is Kentucky, I mean, because really, what's Kentucky looking ahead to, right? Like this isn't exactly like a look ahead game. I mean, they play Florida on Saturday, but that's in Lexington. It's not really a one of those scenarios. So I just think that Kentucky's just a way better team, and my guess is, all things considered, even though South Carolina's at home here, maybe they do some things defensively. I just don't. I don't see a way for South Carolina to be able to score enough points for starters to be able to keep up with Kentucky. And I just feel like that defense, even though it's been good at times, I just tend to think they're more deep, they're more consistent, and I'll say Kentucky wins this by 15 or so.
Okay, most compelling game of the night, hands down. Auburn going to Arkansas. That also tips off at 6 Central. Man, they could have spaced these out a little bit, you'd think. But
I was gonna say, you got 3 here at 6 Eastern or 7 Eastern, yeah.
Yeah. Auburn is about a 4-point favorite, according to Ken Palm, on the road, where Auburn, as a few people have noted on our YouTube channel, Auburn's going to be vulnerable on the road. We've heard that all year, which has actually come true a few times, most recently at Georgia and Missouri, where the Tigers had to hang on for dear life. Now, look, we pointed out those were trap games both times, where they were in between two games of significance, and Auburn bounced back more than fine the next time out. But Arkansas is on a roll. That building will be lit. My concern for Arkansas is, and I think we've talked about this before, is it's not a team that's really built inside, but Jalen Williams is 6'10" and has played really well lately. I guess they could always pull Connor Vanover off the bench if needed. This feels like an Auburn, or excuse me, like an Arkansas upset to me, but I do wonder about the bigs inside.
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup because, it goes back to the video we just talked about, our reaction from the weekend games. I think Jalen Williams is the X factor here, and we talked about how I think he's been the X factor for them over the past month or so. How he plays here to me is the big story, because if he can play, if he can do what he's been doing for the past month, I think Arkansas may win this game, quite frankly, because I think he's been the difference. Now, that is assuming that, you get some production elsewhere from your guards. If JD Note has the game you expect him to have, if you can have, guys like, whether that's, Chris Likes or Tony or Amude, guys like that, somebody else can have to have a big game here, I think. But I think Jalen Williams is the key here, just knowing the size factor, knowing you've got Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler on the other side. Something that I will note is what we've seen Jabari Smith this season. He's had a couple games, where he's been off, hasn't really played his best. He didn't play his best against Georgia, but he's usually bounced back, and we've said that before. He had that bad game against Missouri, bounced back against Oklahoma, had 23 points, 12 rebounds, in 32 minutes. Very, very good performance. I think that's another one here. Now, the difference is this. In the games he's had that have not, if he hasn't played his best, he's bounced back with a big game at home. This one is back-to-back road games, so, that's something else to consider here. And really, I think you probably look like, I'm trying to think, I'm like, most of the games he's had that he's not necessarily played great have been on the road. And so that is something to think about here in this setting. Does he bounce back and have one of those huge games? Or, does this maybe just not, he can't find his groove right now away from home? That is something to think about. Walker Kessler, there's no reason for me to repeat myself. We've said it so many times. To me, he's the guy that can change a game on every play, just with the ability to block shots, score, rebound, do so many things well. But, he's got to stay out of foul trouble in a game like this. And I think that's where you look at Arkansas. their guards are good, and I think that's something you got to look at with this team is they can't shoot it. We keep talking about it. They're not a great 3-point shooting team, but their guards are quick. They're athletic. They can get to the rim, and I think that's something Arkansas has done a pretty good job of this year is getting to the free throw line, right? So this is an interesting game. I'm gonna go with the method I always go with here, and people who have followed my predictions over the years probably know what it is. When you have a team like Auburn, I think you pick them until they lose because I know they've had some close games, and I think that's what I'm going to do here. But if we don't know because we're recording this on Monday morning, if that point spread is 4, I am on Arkansas +4 all day. I think that this will be a very close game. I think Arkansas can absolutely win this game, but until I see someone outscore Auburn on the scoreboard,
Yeah.
since that UConn game, I have a hard time picking against them, and I think this atmosphere is going to be incredible. I even see a scenario where Arkansas, they're not going to run Auburn out of the building or anything, but we've seen these type of games before at Bud Walton, where if you get an Arkansas team that is clicking and they get rolling and that crowd is into it, they're good enough to beat you by 10 or more, right? So this should be one of the best games I think we've seen all season in the SEC. I think the setup is just you've got two teams that are playing their absolute best right now. You're going to have a building that is just, it's going to be incredible. And I'm going to pick Auburn here just because, again, until someone beats them, I'm going to go that direction. But I think this is the spot to me. If it's going to happen, this is it because Arkansas is playing too well. And I think there's a lot of things going in Arkansas's favor here for this to be another game for Auburn on the road that perhaps goes down to the final possession. But man, this is, to me, it's 51-49 here. Like I'll go Auburn 51%, Arkansas 49%. I think this should be a great game. So,
okay, a couple things I'll just bring up. I think you've made up your mind, and I'm not trying to change it, but we try to present all angles here. Okay, and you mentioned this earlier. Arkansas really good at getting to the line. 37.2% in terms of free throws to field goals. That's 27 in the country. Auburn, 33.8% on that side. That's 266 in the country. Again, this being a road game, Biggs being foul prone, that's something to watch. The other thing, and I did not realize this, Arkansas, because this is maybe how you have to beat Auburn, because I don't know that it's hard to count on beating them going up against Kessler and Jabari Smith. And that's what's a problem for Arkansas. 310th in the country in three-point shooting percentage, which I hadn't realized. Surely that's a better shooting team than that. But that's one that jumps off the page there.
I have to say, hang on a second. You remember what we talked about the infamous shot against Mississippi State?
Yeah.
And the type of shot selection sometimes from three is not great. So, no, it's not. And I think that's the thing is, but, in these scenarios before, we talked about it, and I think we pointed out the stat with Arkansas this year. I think they've only had 4 games this year. They've only made 8 or more than 8 threes, which I know 8 sounds like a lot, but if you think about it, like it's really not a ton.
No.
And so it's not a team that's going to be able, unless they just shoot the lights out like they did against Georgia, right? Let's remember that too. They went 15-28 a week ago at Georgia. So they're capable of it, but Georgia's a much different defensive team than Auburn. So listen, if you asked me, if we did this video an hour from now, I may change my pick and pick Arkansas. So if there's anyone out there who's going to bet on which surely you're not at this point, you can't be that crazy. Don't do that.
You've been wait a minute. You've been fairly good this year.
I listen. The last week or so, though, we've been a little off on some of these games, and this is where you start to reach that point where you just don't know what to expect. And this is one I will, in terms of our confidence rankings. Let me pull this up here. In terms of confidence rankings for the games, this is going to be number. It's going to quite frankly, it may be near the bottom. Yeah, it may be at the bottom of these 4 games in terms of my confidence level on who's going to win. So I think that shows you that this is 2 really good teams. I think we're recording this too before the AP polls came out. I don't know if Arkansas, surely they're going to be in there, right?
I would think.
I would think they'll be in there this week, but you'll kind of know, I guess, in terms of where things are at. But yeah, man, this is just, I am so looking forward to this one. I think there are so many different elements, like you said, that can come into play here with these 2 teams. I think it is a matter of can Arkansas get to the free throw line against this Auburn team that has had a Walker Kessler who's gotten in foul trouble some, but really for the most part, it's been more about him blocking shots and kind of avoiding that. So if they can't get to the line, Auburn forces them to shoot outside. That definitely goes in Auburn's favor. But I also think if Auburn can't afford to play in this, and this should be, this is common sense, I know, but I'm going to say it anyways. Auburn cannot play like they did at Missouri or Georgia and win this game. Arkansas will beat them by double digits if that happens. Because I just think Arkansas is way better of a team. And so that it's a matter of which do you get a much more focused Auburn team after getting their attention with these 2 road games against Missouri and Georgia, or do they just happen to be one of those teams maybe that plays to that level on the road? And if they do, I think they get beat here. But I won't predict that just because I'm going to go with the Ric Flair. To be the man, you got to beat the man. And until that happens, I'm gonna stick with the man here, I guess. So,
what do you think it was like in that locker room? Because Bruce Pearl was all smiles afterwards. And no, we took on a good team. Do you think the message to the team might have been a little different than it was to the media?
Yeah. I think he has their attention, would be my guess at this point. Yeah. But again though, he may have their attention, but it may not matter. It may just be a team that is way more comfortable at home, and when they go on the road, this is just what you're going to get. But this is still one that managed to grind out a win against Alabama. Still one that's managed to grind out these wins. But I think to this point in the SEC, this is their toughest challenge on the road. And that, to me, is something that will, again, tell us a lot. Because even playing at Alabama, I know that's a rivalry game, tough to play that one. But I think this is a different animal because you have an Arkansas team that is playing its absolute best right now. And if they play their best in this one, I think they can win, and I think maybe they will win if they play their best because I just think that they are hitting all the right buttons. It's just a matter of, does Auburn play its best? If Auburn plays its best, Auburn's going to win. If it doesn't, I think there's enough room for error there against a team like this to where Arkansas's got a really good shot here. So we'll see, but it's a tough one to predict. So
Missouri heading to Vanderbilt, that one at 8 Central. So that'll be the one game going on at the time. The Tigers, according to Ken Pom, 7-point underdogs. On one hand, this feels like the quintessential Missouri to cover, Vandy to win, until you look at Missouri's performance on the road, which has been abysmal. But Missouri just won on the road against A&M. Missouri's been getting better. We've talked about how Vandy's getting better. How do you see this?
I'm going Vandy here. I think that they impressed me a lot against LSU. Now, you could look back and say, well, is Rodney Chapman going to hit 6 threes in this game? Probably not.
No, but Scottie Pippen's probably not going to score 7 either.
Exactly. You went exactly where I was going to go. But he's also not going to have a game like that where he doesn't really do anything offensively. So, yeah, I think this is – we talked about it. I think Vandy's in a really nice spot here to be able to pick up some momentum, possibly, get to 500 in league play by the time the season's over. We'll see. This is a big step towards doing that. We've seen some let-ups before from this team where you have one good performance and then you think, you're heading in one direction, then you maybe don't play as well the next time. Look, though, Missouri's gotten better, and I think that, they're a team that has played better on the road, as we've discussed. But overall, I think this is a better spot for Vanderbilt. They finally got a little momentum, finally got some fans in the building, where it doesn't feel like a road game all the time. I think it's a good spot for Vandy. If that number's 6 or 7, I'd probably take Vandy still. I think that they are kind of hitting a groove right now, and that's a sign of a team that's getting better and improving. Is if you're able to not just take that against LSU, but can you keep that going in the next game, right? And remember too, like it's funny to think about, isn't it? We just talked about Auburn and Arkansas. Like, who's the team that's won at Arkansas? Like, it's just. Vanderbilt won at Arkansas, right? Like in January. It's crazy to think about.
Beat BYU on a neutral floor. Just beat LSU. The quality wins are starting to stack up for them.
It's interesting. So no, I'm going to take Vandy here. I like what Missouri's doing. I like they're getting better, but I think I like Vandy a little bit more. So
well, and to folks who are new, we are both based in Nashville, so we see a lot of that program. I've been in that gym several times. Vanderbilt has not been good at home all year. But Blake just hinted at it, fans in the stands. The thing is, they didn't let their students in. the first, 3 or 4 conference games. They
Yeah.
lost a few of those. They started letting them in with the Georgia game. The atmosphere really started to pick up that game. Picked up a lot against LSU. That student section was packed. It made a huge difference in terms of atmosphere. Fans are starting to get a little bit excited. Now, the 8 o'clock tip is not going to help there. That's one thing, like if you're Vanderbilt, you'd love to have that at 6 or 7. So maybe that neutralizes it a bit, but that building has been a weird place to play this year. And traditionally, that's a great place. That's a great home court advantage. It has really taken a nosedive in recent years where that building's not half full more often than not. But I'm interested to see how that plays out because it started to get a little bit of feel again to where playing in that place is an advantage. I think we're going to see more of that, but the tip-off makes me hesitate just a little bit.
Here you go. Confidence rankings for these 4. Are you ready? Kentucky at the top. I think Kentucky should be.
Okay, and these are to cover, right?
These are, yeah.
Okay.
This is where my confidence level's at. Kentucky at the top. I think that they should. I think that, look, as we said, I just think Kentucky should be able to take care of business. Well, hold on. Do I want to put them at the top? I may put Vandy at the top.
13's a lot for a team that's played pretty well at home.
Yeah, that is true.
I think your call's right. I think your initial gut is right.
Kentucky, Vandy, A&M. Well, look, if we're talking about just a cover, I might put Arkansas at the top because I think that's a good enough game, and if that's like 4 or something, but it's hard for probably me to say this, like to say confidence rankings because we don't know what the number's going to be yet because we're recording, before they come out. So how about just straight up winners? Kentucky's at the top. I think I'd put Vanderbilt second, A&M third, Auburn fourth, just because it's going to be a better game. So there you go. There's just straight up picks because I think it's hard without knowing the exact number. So there you go.
That's how I would see it too.
There you go.
It's never dull in the SEC anymore. Even the games that we think aren't going to be exciting, more often than not, have delivered.
No, it's listen, there's an argument that I am starting to get on board with about, being the best league in the country, and I think it's just, it's really something right now, and it's fun. I mean, it's fun to see kind of where these teams are at, and it's you can compare the Big 12 and all that, but it's right there at the top, and that's just why these games are very unpredictable, and we'll see what happens. It's always interesting to have a couple top teams going on the road, as we talk about. Kentucky on the road, Auburn on the road. They may look a certain way, but as we've seen, it's not that easy anymore in the SEC. So expect the unexpected when it comes to some of these games.
Well, let me give you my 3-point checkbox for what makes a great league. And it's one, do you have a national title contender? You check that twice because the league's got 2.
Yeah.
The next one is, do you have several teams that are good enough to make the NCAA tournament? Absolutely. You've got at least 4 or 5 others in there. And then the last one is, are your bad teams good enough to make it interesting night in and night out? And I think that's the thing that surprised me is you see some of this in January, in December, but when teams get discouraged and the losses pile up like they are for Georgia, that's when coaches start to lose teams. That's decidedly not happening this year with any program in the league.
Yeah, that's where I would take a team like Vanderbilt, Missouri. I mean, I guess Ole Miss to an extent. Ole Miss is maybe a little hard to justify just because
Ole Miss has looked good some nights, though. Plenty of nights.
I keep thinking about that Missouri game from about 3 weeks ago, and it burned in my brain about how they lost by 25 in that one. But no, even them, if you put those teams at home against, let's say, a top 15, top 25 team, your confidence level has gone up about those teams' chances to win those games. And look, those are right now those are 3 of the bottom 5 teams in the league. So, you can't say that every year. Some of these Vanderbilt teams recently we would not have said that about. We would not have had any expectations for them. Even the Georgia teams, probably some of the bad ones they've had in recent years. But we saw what Georgia did against Auburn. It's even these bad teams at the bottom are not that bad anymore. They just their records are not great, but I don't think there's hardly any bad teams in the SEC, and I think that is something now to think that, like we said, Vanderbilt, Missouri, Ole Miss, maybe South Carolina. We'll see how they play against Kentucky, but it's like you just got a lot more teams that are kind of in a better spot. Just based on where they're headed. So
well, let's not forget a week ago we were really down on Vandy and starting to get a little bullish on Carolina. That might be strong. Carolina beat them for the second straight time, just whipped them down the stretch of that game, and a week later it's different. So anyway, that's, like I said, it's been interesting all year. Blake, tell folks about our special partnership that we've got.
Yep, Action 24/7 in the description below. Click on that link. Use the code South14, and first deposit, they will match up to $800. So if you want to bet on any of these games, you can do that just by clicking on the link, enter the code South14.
He's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We'll see you again on Tuesday.